Okay, everybody, it is me, Gregory Manarino. We are together again at last. I love this part. All right, people, look. So, yes, Sunday, March 20th, 2022. I want to cover a bunch of things with you here, and I think this video is going to be kind of important and also interesting to see how this whole thing plays out. As usual, before we look forward here, this is markets a look ahead, right? I want to look back just a little bit, okay? So let's talk about the last 4 lovely trading days. Well, we just had 4 stock market rallies in a row, which all began the day before the Federal Reserve decided to make its announcement with regard to monetary policy. I want to talk more about that too, because people, the lie is continuing to be propagated via the mainstream outlets. They are fist feeding this to all of you, to the people of the world, and I think people are buying it. Not you, but we're going to talk more about that too. So, on the back of the Federal Reserve raising the federal funds rate, think about what I'm about to tell you. 0.25% in an environment of surging inflation. I mean, their numbers are telling us that we're at like 8% inflation now. Not only that, let's pay attention to something that the thing, Jay Powell, Yellowstone, said during the FOMC meeting. He warned us or threatened us, depending on your perspective, or maybe you think he's looking out for us because you really believe that the Fed cares about you. Fed Chair Powell said he expects inflationary pressures to rise in the short term. So, I mean, what is he saying? Well, inflation's going higher. Duh. Double duh. With no end in sight. You know what? Hold on a minute. Before we look at the market real quick, now that I've gotten on this topic, I want to bring your attention to something. By their numbers, we have inflation near 8%. The federal funds rate right now, we know this, as Yellowstone had informed us, the federal funds rate is going to remain between 0.25 and 0.5. So, and this comes after their, momentous rate hike. So let's put that alone into perspective. We have inflation by their numbers about 8%. We have a federal funds rate, let's go to the high end, 0.5%. Okay, so tell me, because see, maybe I'm not smart enough to understand this. How does having the federal funds rate at 0.5 at the high end, how is that supposed to combat inflation at 8%? Do you see what I'm trying to say? Basically, it comes down to this. What the Federal Reserve is doing, or not allowing people to understand, is there is no way on the planet, off the planet, or anywhere else you want to look, that by keeping the federal funds rate at 0.5, 0.25 to 0.5%, there is no way that that is going to bring down inflation. As a matter of fact, in order for that to happen, the federal funds rate would have to be above the current rate of inflation, which is near 8%. Does that make sense to you? It should make sense to you. Think about what I just said. In order for the Federal Reserve to, by using their tool, okay, he has a whole bunch of tools, you know what I'm talking about. He always talks about them, Fed Chair Yellowstone. In order for him to use that tool alone, that is raising rates, he would have to push the federal funds rate above the current rate of inflation. By not doing that, by following their current path, the Fed is guaranteeing one thing, that inflation is going to rage higher. By keeping the federal funds rate incredibly suppressed, as it is right now, in this skyrocketing inflation rate environment, he is actually fueling higher inflation. Do you believe sincerely that this is by accident, let me ask you, when was the last time you heard, I don't know, one of the talking heads on the mainstream media explain it to you like that? You see, they won't allow you to know it. People are not allowed to understand what's really going on. They just let it go right over their head. Oh, the Federal Reserve is raising rates. They're very serious about wanting to fight inflation. How do we know that? Because they keep saying it. Oh, yes, we are the Federal Reserve. We members of the Fed, we really want to fight inflation. We're going to attack it. Really? By raising the federal funds rate 0.25% off of zero? Oh, our economy is booming. You know that. We've been hearing that same narrative for years, all through the Trump administration, going back to the other retard before him and the retard before him. Oh, yeah, our economy is doing fantastic. Is that why they are artificially suppressing rates with no end in sight? No, because they are deliberately inflating people. It's deliberate, and you haven't seen it or anything. I've been telling you this for the longest freaking time. But what we have seen, okay, on the back of this whole thing is something that you and I knew would happen. You and I have sat right here, staring right ahead of each other like we are right now, okay, and have discussed how the 10-year yield would eventually settle above 2%. People, we're pretty much there now. Is it possible yet again for the 10-year yield to drop under 2? Absolutely. It would take a pretty significant thing to allow that to happen. I mean, an escalation of this war, which I am sure is going to happen. Some other kind of outlying event, obviously, would cause a major safety trade. You could see the 10-year yield drop, dollar spike, stock market sell off. You all know this. This is the game, okay? What would that mean to me or you? You know what I'm going to tell you? There would be an opportunity to buy. Why? Because I just explained to you that the Federal Reserve is clearly right now in the act of deliberately inflating, henceforth keeping the federal funds rate suppressed, making sure the entire yield curve stays managed. Okay, look. That's another thing I'd like to talk about just real quick. How does the Federal Reserve, you all know this anyway, but I'm going to just cover it real quick. How does the Federal Reserve manage to keep the yield curve where it is? In other words, to keep rates suppressed across the board. Can they just say it? Can the Federal Reserve just say, hey, you know what we're going to do? We're going to keep rates low. Can they just say it? Can they just open up their mouths? And it just happens? How about no? You see, in order for that to occur, the Fed has to create, by some magical spell, they have to create cash out of thin air. Just make it. And then they have to get into the debt market and buy the freaking debt. That's how they keep rates suppressed, but you're not allowed to know that either. Guess what? No, it's the biggest secret being kept from the American people and the people of the world. I think that people may actually conceive, possibly, that the Federal Reserve, they're a bunch of warlocks, and they have magical powers, and they're stirring a big black pot full of dog shit that they're steaming and they're inhaling. And they want us all to breathe it in, and they want us to drink it by the bucketful. That's what they want. I'm sorry. That's what they want. That's what they're doing at the Federal Reserve, okay? You already know that. They are pouring buckets full of dog shit, cat shit, bird shit, horse shit, every other kind of shit down people's throats to try to convince them, number one, that what they're seeing is not real, that inflation is transitory and it's just miraculously going to go away. Meanwhile, the Federal Reserve continues to fuel inflation like we've never seen before. I told everyone here on this blog, and you and I have discussed it, that we are going to see inflation surge. We are going to see rates be artificially suppressed for as far as the eyeball can see. My top trends for 22, one of them was the Fed would continue to inflate, and we would see lower for longer, again, for as far as the eyeball can see. I said food inflation would surge, energy would surge, and that's something else I want to talk about too. So look, we understand this is a complete shit show on an epic scale. The stock market is coming off of a 4-day rally. So look, I am not as you all know, in the business of picking tops or bottoms. Anyone who's in that business is going to lose in the long run. I'm telling you now. You don't believe me? Okay, you'll learn for yourself. Just you're going to learn the hard way. But after 4 days of rallies in this stock market on the back of the Federal Reserve raising the federal funds rate, you and I knew this would happen. You and I spoke about right here on this video blog how if the Federal Reserve raised rates, which I believe they would this time, I was wrong the time before that, but this time I said they would, and I said the market would respond in a positive way, although I was told, oh, Greg, you're wrong. The market's gonna crash this time, I'm sure of it, because some idiot on YouTube told me it would. Every freaking month, every week. Yeah, we knew it would rally off of that, and that's exactly what we have seen. But coming off of a 4-day rally, look, you know how this market works. A random walk with an upward drift. As long as the debt market remains stable, the market's going higher, people. And the 10-year yield now settling above 2%, I told you, the market's going to love it. But with that said, this market should really give some back. I'm going to tell you what would not surprise me right now. If, in fact, the stock market would give a little back early in the week, maybe even tomorrow, it needs to happen in order for the market to move higher. Now, you and I, we know where to freaking look, all right? The key to this whole thing, people, is the debt market. The stock market is a derivative of what's happening in the debt market. The Federal Reserve is deliberately inflating. They're deliberately fueling the monster. Okay, the global monster in debt is being fueled primarily by the Federal Reserve. How do we know that? Because the U.S. dollar is the world reserve currency. Okay, not only are they artificially suppressing debt by continuing to buy it, you know how this works. They're issuing debt through one door and they're buying it back through another door. Issuing debt through one door, buying it back through another door. This process is massively inflationary, and everybody knows it, well, except our freaking retarded, okay? I'm going to just say it, and I know this offends people, but I frankly don't give a damn, okay? Maybe if you can't handle this kind of language, you should go someplace else. I have no problem with that. But the issue is our retarded representatives who don't represent anyone, they're sitting back here allowing this institution here, the Federal Reserve, to sidestep its mandate of price stability. The Federal Reserve has a mandate, okay? They are mandated by law. So our lawmakers should handle this, right? Mandated by law to promote price stability. Do prices look stable to you? They are surging out of control. When? Really? Please, someone tell me. When is the Federal Reserve going to be held to account? How about never? Because they are the real government. We have no representation anymore. You all know that. Doesn't matter who sits behind the Resolute desk. Could be a farm animal mooing, meow, meow, whatever it wants to freaking do. Okay. I tell you, people, this stuff does really get to me. I'm telling you, my blood pressure is probably in the thousands right now. Anyway, so let's look forward a little bit on top of all this. As long as the debt market stays stable, like I have told you, the market will move higher. Yes, in fact, we are coming off of, it looks like we are at least, a normal market correction, okay? We had years of this stock market going straight up. Since the end of last year, this market has come down. I explained to you again, as one of my top trends for this year, you would see increased volatility in the stock market. Duh! Here we are right now, okay? I didn't pull that out of a hat. For those of you that think that I'm just guessing. Greg is guessing these things. You gotta be kidding me. Anyway, so with that said, I mean, there's a lot of uncertainty here. You got a war that's going on. Vladimir Putin, the best friend of central banks in the history of the world, is allowing central banks to, again, inflate on a massive scale. We haven't seen anything yet with regard to that. They needed some kind of an event like this, okay? They needed this war, anywhere in the world, just to, again, allow central banks to inflate even further. So again, Vladimir Putin, the best friend of central banks, none more so than the Federal Reserve. Maybe he's on the payroll. What do you think? Look, there is not a single world leader today that is not a puppet of the central banks. Central banks are the one world government that we've all heard about would come. It's them. Okay, you want to do something about it? I don't know. Take action. Right now, central banks around the world are the strongest institutions on the planet, bar none. They can't be stopped. With regard to the Federal Reserve, they have the full military might and backing of the U.S. Armed Forces, including its nuclear arsenal. So you tell me what institution is the strongest in the world right now. Anyway, you know, I was writing all this stuff down here, and it's really getting to me, honest, this lie that is being propagated by the mainstream media repeatedly. Look, the more they repeat a lie, the more people are going to believe it, okay? And the lie is that by the Federal Reserve raising rates, they're going to be fighting inflation. Meanwhile, what they will not tell you is in order for that to actually happen, the Federal Reserve would have to raise rates so dramatically. I mean, we're at 8%. 1/4% with the federal funds rate somewhere hovering between 0.25 and 0.5 won't do nothing except cause inflation to rise faster. But they won't tell you that. Turn that shit off. You know, I watch it only because I'm out of my mind. Anyway, people, look, you know, even Powell, like I said, he admitted in the short run we're going to see inflation surge even higher than we are now. I want you to keep your eyes on commodities. I want you to keep your eyes on energy, crude oil here. We had witnessed a pretty profound drop off the highs. And you know how this works. We go up, we drop, we find a new floor, and we go higher. In my view, okay, we're going to see commodities across the board, crude oil, natural gas, go much, much higher as the dollar continues to crater in terms of absolute strength. You and I have also discussed right here on this blog how the relative strength of the dollar, that is relative to other currencies, would remain high. And that's exactly what is going on. But its absolute strength is dissolving, henceforth why you're seeing inflation skyrocket. And the Federal Reserve is doing this deliberately. They're going to continue to inflate. And people are going to sit back and go, what's happening? Why is this happening? Isn't the Federal Reserve raising rates? Isn't that supposed to stop inflation? I mean, that's what they're telling us across the mainstream news outlets, so it must be right. People have been made into dumbed down, retarded puppets watching the device that programs their brain. That's why these things are called programs. You understand? Imagine for a moment, sincerely, if, I don't know, Fox Business, CNBC, Bloomberg had me on and I was out here laying out what I just did. If they broadcast what I just said, maybe we'd wake up some people. I don't know. Maybe we wouldn't either, because people are just frankly too stupid. That's the general population. They've been deliberately dumbed down, and it will continue. You and I, you have to understand, we can see a little further down the road only because our brain works. All you need is 1 or 2 functioning brain cells. That's it, to realize what's going on around you. But most people don't even have that. And they've been so overburdened with what's happening around them, they don't even have time to think. And that's a deliberate act too. Keep people in some kind of state of confusion, keep them working around the clock, make them slaves, and you can control their minds. Keep them in some kind of state of fear, constant fear, fear, fear. And that's it, you own them. Not only do they become, well, slaves, but they become, well, I guess slaves in some capacity are owned. They are absolutely owned. And unfortunately, that is the vast majority of the population. All right, people, look, I think this has been a very important video. I want you to ponder the things I've spoken about here. I want to hear from you. Please comment. Let me know what you think about these things. And what do you foresee can be done about it? Or you know, look, I've told you it's every man and every woman for himself, but we got to band together, people. We need each other more than ever. Love each other, care about each other, be charitable. How many times have you heard me say that? Thousands, if you've been with me for years. Some of you have been. All right, people, look, I'm going to end this video before it goes beyond 20 minutes. It's a pretty freaking long video. I love all of you so much. I really do. I got your back, and I know you got mine. Anyway, let's make this happen. I'll see all of you in the morning. Please comment. See you later.